Police 911.
Oh my God, Dan, I'm shit, big accident. What road are we on?
What mile mark are you at?
What road are we at? What road is this? Pleasant Road.
What? Hold on, stop yelling.
Oh,
911.
Listen, I'm now shooting New York City police officer.
okay, are you out at the scene right now?
Yes, I'm at the scene.
Okay, are there any injuries?
No, we have fatalities.
Fatality at the scene?
We have
Okay, stay on the phone with me. I'm going to give you EMS, okay? Hold on.
Okay. So the ambulance too, we have a possible car fire. Car may blow up as well.
So there's a car fire and a fatality?
Yeah, we have numerous fatalities.
Numerous fatalities?
We have one.
This is at 4.1 northbound on the Taconic, 60 control.
Diane Schuler drives against traffic for 1.7 miles in the fast lane, never veers, seems to have a serene, almost oblivious look on her face, and kills 8 people. The worst accident in recent memory.
Ladies and gentlemen and gender nonconformists everywhere, here's another episode of Doc World, brought to you by Dark World. I'm with my kid brother, Devin Crittenden, once again.
Good
Hi,
to be
Devin.
back here, Jord. Good to be back here.
Great to have you. And I'm Jordan Crittenden.
And
the
I'm
host.
Devin Crittenden.
We've got 2 Crittendens today. Devin was last here pretty recently. We did Liz Garbus's HBO docuseries, I'll Be Gone in the Dark. And we're back again doing another documentary by Liz Garbus. This one older. This is from 2011, also for HBO. It's called There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane. And Devin and I just watched this. We just finished. We just wrapped up. And we came right into the stewed to record and talk about it. So a little background. The story that's told here in There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane, as I say, the documentary came out in 2011. The events that are discussed in the documentary took place in 2009 in upstate New York. There was a horrible head-on collision on the Taconic State Parkway, I believe it was called, Taconic Parkway. And a woman named Diane Schuler was driving a minivan with her 2 children, son and daughter, and 3 nieces. And she got on to the freeway going the wrong direction and eventually collided head-on with another car. And that car spun off after the collision into another car. So there were 3 cars involved. Diane Schuler's minivan, the one that started the whole mess, was most destroyed, I guess you would say. Flew off the road. Multiple passengers were ejected from the vehicle. There was a fiery mess. The car she hit was also severely damaged. And I think there were 3 passengers in that one. All 3 of those died. And the 3rd car, nothing really to write home about there. It was just sort of a extra casualty, but no deaths there. But in this accident, Diane Schuler was killed. Her daughter was killed. All 3 of her nieces were killed. And there was 1 survivor, her son Brian, who was just a wee lad at the time. In the car that Diane hit, all 3 passengers were killed. They were all senior citizens. That's just a little background about the events that are covered in this documentary. There's sort of a lot to get to. But first off, if you haven't seen this documentary, I recommend watching it first. It's available on HBO Max. You can find it online as well for free. But there will be spoilers. from this point forward. So if you don't care about that, yeah, just keep listening. Or if you've seen this documentary, keep on listening. If you don't like to have things like that spoiled, maybe go watch the documentary first. But I think that this conversation will probably be fine, even if you haven't watched the documentary and don't want to. We're just going to break down sort of what happened in it. So Devin, what did you think of this documentary overall? Let's start there.
Well, Liz Garbus coming in here, throwing hot heat. Just one of the best filmmakers out there doing the documentary game. So very well done today. She's very good at research. They get a lot of information that the families and even the investigators didn't seem to be privy to. So, always applause for that. I think overall, it's somewhat of an interesting documentary, just looking at, for me, it's sort of about looking in the face of grief, how people deal with grief, especially in a sort of, I guess you would say, suburban, rural town where it doesn't seem like people are very open, especially men. There's a lot of toxic masculinity, I think, going on in this. So overall, did I enjoy the doc? I think, yeah, I enjoyed the watch. The crux of the story of the documentary is that
Diane Schuler.
Diane Schuler's husband and his sister-in-law.
Yeah, so quick character breakdown. Diane Schuler's husband would be Daniel Schuler. His brother is Jimmy Schuler, and Jimmy married a woman named Jay. Jay Schuler then becomes the sister-in-law for Daniel and Diane Schuler.
So the husband of the driver, Aunt Diane,
Daniel Schuler.
Daniel Schuler sort of refuses to accept the autopsy and toxicology report, and they continue to try to investigate to get answers for the situation that they just can't wrap their heads around. Aunt Diane, the driver's blood alcohol level was 0.19 when she was tested, also had marijuana in her system. So clearly, had been hitting the bottle. The question, I guess, is why? And did she knowingly turn into the wrong direction on the freeway? Doesn't seem like there's really evidence for that, but they refuse to accept the fact that she really did any of this.
Yeah, when you say they, you mean her husband, Daniel Schuler, and her sister-in-law, Jay Schuler. Yeah, that is sort of the way we're brought into the story, is with those two people trying to reconcile what happened to their sister-in-law and wife, respectively. And there's a lot of denial going on there because, as you said, the toxicology reports done in good faith, pretty accepted across the board from state officials, from people like Werner Spitz. Shout out Werner Spitz, who's been on the show a couple of times, world-renowned forensic pathologist. He thought the autopsy was done correctly and the toxicology results should be taken at face value. But that narrative or the evidence shown in the autopsy report runs counter to the way people remember and saw Diane Schuler. This doesn't fit with who she was as a person. At least it doesn't fit with who she was as a person externally to what friends and family saw. So it's odd. And, even if you're driving drunk, driving under the influence of marijuana, it's still the way that what she did was described when she gets onto the freeway going the wrong direction. She wasn't making any attempts to swerve out of the way of other cars coming at her. She was just driving straight on, almost like she was in a fugue state, focused and determined by all accounts of witnesses. So she wasn't really, that's still a really intense thing to do, just as driving drunk, like getting on the wrong way of the freeway and not recognizing that you are. Even when you're drunk, you can kind of tell that that's going on. Like, oh shit, there's cars coming at me. She didn't seem to register any of that. So that's interesting. Also, the timeline for the day leaves a pretty limited window for her to become this intoxicated. Devin pointed out her blood alcohol content was 0.19. That's based on her height and weight, that's roughly, according to the state toxicologist, about 10 drinks that she had in her system, 10 shots. In the wreckage after the accident, there was a bottle of Absolute vodka found in there. I think it was like a fifth, maybe a handle. But so presumably the 10 drinks would be 10 shots of vodka, if that's what she was using. But what comes into question with all this is, when did she take these drinks? How did she get it in her? And when did the weed get in her? All of this. So do you think it's best to start with the timeline at the beginning of the day, or do you think we should start by talking about who this woman was? What do you think is the best way to get at this?
Maybe we can just touch on briefly who the woman was, or who witnesses after her death say she was. It's always going to be a little more rosy.
Yeah, very good point. In fact, in the documentary, Liz Garbus goes and interviews a psychiatric doctor from Harvard Medical School, and he conducts a forensic psychiatric autopsy of the family members that are grieving. He's trying to check out what their mindset is following this. And he also did it for Diane. I guess it's the practice of studying the frame of mind of a person at the time of death or just before the death, sort of like the last day, unpacking their mindset, and then also doing it with the people left behind who are grieving for this person. And he points out something that I think tracks for all of us or makes sense, is that when someone is being demonized, because what happens here is, after all of this info comes out after this horrible accident, which killed 8 people, Diane Schuler is sort of quickly demonized in the media. She becomes a monster because she was, the way it looks is she was just wasted driving kids, going the wrong way on the freeway, and caused a fatal accident. So yeah, pretty shitty. And so what this forensic psychiatric autopsy points out about the grieving loved ones left behind, specifically Diane's husband, Daniel Schuler, and his sister-in-law, Jay Schuler, is that when their loved one is being demonized like this, there's a tendency to defend that person and to dismiss any bad memories you had of them, quotes around bad, but any times when they seemed like maybe they were abusing drugs and alcohol or any of that, and to see it sort of through rose-colored glasses. This person was a saint, and I'm going to prove it to you somehow. So they're on this quest to clear Diane's name in the face of evidence.
Yeah, and one thing everyone seems to say is, she was great, she was all this, and they're like, no, she never drank. She never, did drugs. And slowly, confronted with clear evidence, he starts to open up a little bit, Daniel Schuler. And he's like, oh, no, well, we did have a handle of vodka that we kept in our camper when we went out to the lake, which is where the day began, coming back from a camping trip. So, it just feels like clear denial to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it started off, no, Diane wouldn't do this. She never drank and she never took marijuana. And then slowly, as the story unfolds, they changed the story a little. Well, yeah, she would take marijuana to get a good night's sleep every once in a while. Oh, okay, so she did have access to weed. And then, well, yeah, she would drink every once in a while. In fact, we kept vodka up at the cabin. Okay, so that changes. That gets, as you said, more is revealed about that. But so who Diane Schuler was, by all accounts, like super mom. She works full time. She's the breadwinner for her family. She's sort of a high-powered businesswoman, makes a lot of money. She's involved in the PTA, all her kids' school events. She's cleaning the house. She's extremely tidy, almost perfect, like too perfect. So at the end of the day, did she need to unwind with drugs and alcohol? It's possible. But again, the family either didn't see any of that or doesn't want to admit that they did. But by all accounts from friends and family, that was not part of her her deal. She was not a partier or anything like that. And friends and family all across the board say that she was this way. Meticulous, successful, mom of the year kind of thing. Some trauma in her past. Her mother abandoned her and her brothers when she was young. She ended up growing up with just her father and brother, so she was sort of the woman of the house and harbored a lot of resentment towards her mother for that. This could have driven her to try and be the perfect mom, and that could have been something she was battling with. We don't want to assume too much, but do you think that's sufficient for background on Diane? We can dive into the day here in question.
Yeah, I think so. I think the important thing is just to know that she's not someone you'd call like a burnout druggie or something. By all accounts, that's not who she was. So it is a little surprising that her blood alcohol would be that high.
Right.
But it's also surprising you drive on the wrong side of the freeway. So
yeah,
it's a lot of strange things.
Totally. And yeah, this is the woman, this is the nice, friendly minivan mom that you see at school and is all cheery, waving at you. Hey, how you doing, guys? Like, just real cool. So
Aunt Diane takes their 2 kids with her husband, and then they also take 3 of her nieces. So you got 5 kids and the 2 adults up at this cabin for the weekend where they're there's a boat. They're on a lake, so they're doing boat stuff.
Yeah, it's like a end of summer weekend kind of thing up at the cabins, and they sort of camp out in this area where there are cabins. People bring campers, and on the day that they're supposed to leave to go home, it's a Sunday morning, and they took separate cars. Husband Daniel Schuler is going to drive his pickup with the dog, and he's got the camper attached to it, so he's going to leave, and then Diane's going to drive the minivan with the 5 children. And so the first witness to this that we get to start our timeline is the woman, the proprietor of the campsite and the camping grounds. And this woman claims, Diane came and said goodbye to me that morning. And, they were ready to head home. She had the minivan with the kids, and she seemed totally fine. And so we're going to start our morning with our timeline at 9:30 a.m. And the proprietor of the campsite says Diane seemed, quote, totally sober, end quote. And Diane seemed totally normal.
I think it's also important to note here that she did say the kids were laughing and screaming in the back of the car, having fun. They said they wanted to come back next year. They were already excited for the next time they come up. I think that's important because one of my more hypothetical theories we can get to later, I think that is the strongest evidence against it, that the kids seemed to be fine and Diane seemed to be fine when they were leaving the campground.
At 9:56 a.m., so they've begun their journey. They're headed home. Diane and the minivan full of kids, they stop at a McDonald's and, just went in, ordered some food. The employee that served her was interviewed later and remembered Diane and said again that she seemed totally fine at this point, no signs of intoxication or anything like that. And this, again, just a half hour later. So, around 10 a.m. now, Diane's still seemingly fine. Now, one thing that could be in play is that she is an alcoholic, has been drinking for a long time throughout her life, and is, a managing, functioning alcoholic. Thank you. Now, you could still smell alcohol on these people, but
can't smell vodka, though.
Typically, you can't tell.
Can't smell vodka. You sweat out vodka. It's not on your breath.
Is that true?
Yeah, that's what Robin Williams used to do. So he'd slam vodka, and no one could smell it on his breath, but he'd start sweating from being on set or, being improvising and being loud. And then his co-stars would be like, yeah, he smelled like a liquor store.
And that's different from other liquors?
I believe so, yeah.
Interesting. At 10:46 a.m., so this is interesting. Okay, so they stop at McDonald's at 9:56 a.m. We'll call that 10 a.m. Now, presumably, you're making a stop here. You've got kids. You're doing a little road trip. You don't want to keep stopping. So presumably, they either have gas already or she gassed up on this same trip, made sure everyone used the bathroom, same trip to McDonald's, I mean, and then they were good to go. But actually, she stops again just 45 minutes later. So 10:46 a.m., they stop at a gas station, a Sunoco gas station. And here we have footage of Diane. Outdoor camera shows us, she pulls up to the gas pump. I don't believe she pumped gas.
No
That's
gas.
just where she put the car. She goes in alone. The kids stay. She goes in, walks in like she's looking for something, but doesn't really do a thorough search. She just kind of walks in, looks around a little bit, then makes a move to the counter where she starts talking at someone behind the counter who's off screen we don't see. It's very brief. She walks right back out and leaves. Now, it's posited in the documentary by a couple of people that she was stopping for Advil or Tylenol or something, but I'm not sure why they think that's what she was stopping for.
I think that is what the guy said who was
The
working
clerk?
there. Yeah.
Okay.
Said she asked for pain meds,
Okay.
didn't have them, and then she moved on.
That would make sense then. I guess we could note this now. Might as well. Diane had some dental issues. She had some pain with teeth, and in fact, she had an abscessed molar that she had been seeking treatment for off and on at the dentist, like for over a year. No particular reason to believe that it was bothering her that day. She didn't tell anyone it was bothering her. Her husband didn't seem to remember her complaining all weekend about tooth pain. Is it possible that this abscessed tooth suddenly started bothering her on this drive home? Maybe. But, something's bugging her. She needs some Advil for something.
Yeah, to pull over, not pump gas. You got 5 kids in the car. You're really looking for some meds at that point.
Right.
She was in some kind of pain or distress.
Yeah.
This was the last time she was seen.
Right.
The last footage of
camera,
her alive. So
now, Brian Schuler, the one surviving passenger from Diane's van, Brian doesn't remember a whole lot from that day. He suffered traumatic brain injury in the accident. He was thrown from the car. Multiple children were seen ejected from the car in this accident. Just truly horrific. But Brian recalls that his mother said that her head hurt and she couldn't see. Those are the only things he really remembers her saying. And we'll get to later, one of the other passengers said something similar. So at 11:37 a.m., about an hour after the stop looking for Advil, Diane called her sister-in-law, Jay Schuler. Now, this was a regular call. She was calling about some tickets to an event, like a school event. Did you make sure you got the tickets for the school play or something like that? Just a normal sort of boring pedestrian phone call. So she's not in so much pain that she's not thinking about regular life and just like making phone calls and stuff. And Jay said she seemed fine at that point. Like didn't sound out of the ordinary, didn't mention any pain or anything. So this is an hour later. So that's 11:37. The accident happens at 1:35. So we've got a 2-hour window here now for Diane to change. From the normal person we see on the gas station video and that Jay heard on that phone call to someone who is seemingly in a fugue state, driving on the wrong side of the freeway and loaded with alcohol and THC, apparently. So we've got a 2-hour window there. Now, she could have started drinking already and everything, but I'm just talking about the shift. Has to occur within 2 hours. And so about 20 minutes after that, we'll say, let's just call it noon, we get some witness reports. Garbus interviews some people who saw Diane around this time.
And what they described happened is that she was behind them, tailgating them, was so close they couldn't see her headlights, honking her horn, swerving, trying to pass these cars on the freeway. So the guy who is the witness said she tried to pass him on the shoulder, which is a bold move.
Very.
So she needed to get off the freeway. So they eventually end up taking the same exit. This eyewitness doesn't know why this person's following him, but she turns off and goes into a different parking lot, rest area. They continue on to some restaurant. And they said that she appeared to get out of the car and looked like she was going to be sick, is what they said. So does that mean she was puking? Does that mean she was just dry heaving? Did she decide to smoke a little joint at that point?
Yeah, we'll unpack some theories that we have or scenarios that we like after we finish the timeline. So to finish up the timeline here, we don't really have much more information after that witness account until about a half hour before the accident. So an hour after the witness account-ish, that was around noonish. We don't pick up again with any info until about 1 p.m., an hour later. And what happened there was the father of the three nieces, Diane's three nieces that were in the car with her, got a missed call from Diane's phone, called back, couldn't get her initially, then called back and got his oldest daughter, Diane's oldest niece. Correction. After the missed call, Dad tries to call back, doesn't get through, but his oldest daughter uses Diane's phone to call him and says, "Dad, there's something wrong with Aunt Diane." That's where we get our title. And she says, "Diane can't see. She can't see anything. Something's wrong." And her father asked, "Okay, well, where are you?" She said, "We're near Terrytown. That's the sign I see." So at 1:10 p.m., 9 minutes after that call from Diane's oldest niece, now it said 3 wrong numbers.
Were dialed from her phone.
What does wrong numbers mean?
She dialed the wrong number.
Just called weird numbers that didn't work?
Yeah. Well, if she can't see, she's just trying to talk to somebody, right? Trying to call anyone. Can't get a hold of anyone. And then they're wrong numbers, so she eventually gives up and then leaves her phone on the side of the road. So they had pulled off after they went through this toll road at the bridge. They've now pulled off the road, and this is when the calls start getting made. And at some point, she leaves her cell phone just
right there on the shoulder on one of those like concrete median protector things. And what you just said about the bridge is worth noting that at this point, Diane has taken the correct route you would take to go from the cabin area back home. It's when she hits the bridge, the Tappan Zee Bridge or Tappan Zee Bridge. Tappan Zee, I think. That's when her route changes, and we don't know why, but she didn't do what you would normally do on that route. Instead, she got off the freeway and started taking a different direction. This is what ends up taking her to the Taconic Parkway.
So at this point, there must have been something wrong because they've pulled over. They're making calls. The eldest niece is saying there's something wrong with Diane. She can't see. And for some reason, they decide we're good. And they get back in the car and they keep going. I mean, these are all really young kids, but they're old enough to have a cell phone. They're old enough to sort of know what's going on. So it's very odd to me that they seem to just be fine with this, that they go ahead and go.
Yeah, there's a power dynamic and a position of trust going on too, though, because if we do believe that these accounts of Diane are true, then this is someone they definitely felt safe with. And if Diane's saying, "Okay, I'm good. No, we'll be fine. I'm good," they're going to trust that, I think, rather than, "No, I'm just going to stay here at this rest stop in the middle of nowhere. You go ahead, Diane." So I think that's in play. Also, they're not that old. So I think the oldest was like 9 or 10 at the time.
I thought 12.
Maybe 11.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't quote me on that. But I'm just thinking of their pictures now. She could be 12, I suppose. 2009, would a 12-year-old have a cell phone? Maybe. But she used Diane's phone to call her dad anyway. Now, at this point, Dad's scared because he got this phone call and he's trying to just go find them. Gets in his car. He's like, "I'm going to go look for the van because Diane's not answering." Of course she's not answering. Her phone is on the side of the freeway somewhere. So now we've got about 20 minutes left before the accident. And this is when eyewitnesses start calling police and saying, oh my God, there's a car driving the wrong way on the Taconic Parkway. 911's getting dozens of calls reporting the same thing. But it's too late. And several cars have to swerve out of the way of Diane, and they all say the same thing, that she's making no effort to swerve out of the way of them. It's like playing chicken, and Diane's winning with every car she comes in contact with. They said she had this fixed stare and hands at 2 and 10 on the wheel, just focused, driving hard. And that was the eeriest thing for them, was that there was no, or it seemed to them that to her, they weren't even there. Does that make sense?
Don't know. It should be said, though, so I think this is a really key point. When she leaves the cell phone, they get back in the car, and like you said, she ends up on this Taconic Parkway, which is nowhere near where she wants to be going.
Yeah.
It's far out of the way. So they're lost. Like, she's lost, whether she realized it or not, right? So you can see maybe making that mistake. You're lost. You go, oh, here's the entrance. You pull on. So wasted you don't see the giant red signs that say wrong way.
Yeah, for a little bit, I'll buy that. But she did drive for a mile and 1.7 miles with cars swerving out of the way that whole time. You'd recognize it eventually and at least try to get over him to the shoulder and stop driving.
No, definitely. And this is where it starts to get weird for me. This is where the mystery comes in. I think because the kids have got to be in the back screaming their heads off, right? We're on the wrong side of the freeway, Aunt Diane, and she either doesn't hear them or is choosing not to hear them. And I think part of the reason that the family is so in denial about it is that it seems like a suicide. I mean, it's hard to think. Because I have heard of people driving on the wrong side of the freeway, head-on collisions, but it's because they're on crank and, angel dust, not because they've been drinking and getting stoned.
Right. As I say, even if you're like wasted, that's such a intense thing that you're probably going to recognize it. I mean, that's
2 miles of driving, that's like 8 exits on a freeway. So she had some time to realize what was going on. And I mean, I will say 0.19% BAC, blood alcohol content, is basically 20%. So like 1/5 of her body's is alcohol at this point. It's an insane amount
it really is
for someone. So she's blacked out, but you'd have to be, I don't know. It just seems very odd to me that to do that kind of accident, regardless of how messed up you are.
Yeah, I mean, this pretty much brings us to where we can start getting into, all this stuff of unpacking what happened, what could have happened, and why, like motives and things. So the accident happens. She hits, head on. She's going over 70 miles per hour. Presumably the other car is too. People have been swerving out of the way. This one isn't able to. They smash head on. The car she hits flies into another one. Diane's minivan veers off the road and goes quite a distance off of the freeway, where it flips a few times and catches fire and burns. But most of the people, in fact, I think all of the passengers in Diane's van had been ejected in the process already, except maybe Diane. I think she's found in the field by the burning car. That could be wrong, though.
No, they said so bystanders saw this thing happen, got out, rushed to help. The car's in flames, and they started trying to pull people
that's right.
out.
They weren't all ejected, right? Because there was that man that was emotional saying he was trying to save one of the girls.
Yeah. And super intense moment. Liz Garbus just shows you a direct face picture of Aunt Diane.
Yeah, just her dead body there, bloated and face smashed up. But
you brought up an interesting point, though. You said, wow, head-on. She was the first, she's the driver. She's right in the front of this accident, and she doesn't look that bad considering
what it is.
Yeah, the carnage of the accident.
So was she ejected it doesn't look like she was ejected through the windshield because her face was pretty swollen, but intense move, Liz Garbus coming in hot, dropping those photos. They're pretty jarring. I'm not sure that they do much
Other
that they
than
were
shock.
necessary other
Well,
than
it
shock,
does-
except it does bring this up, which is she didn't look that bad. You know?
Yeah, and you say, well, how can that be? But they say in drunk driving accidents, usually the person who's drunk isn't the fatality. They're so drunk that their body is relaxed, so they sort of absorb impact.
Yeah, and they don't tense up knowing they're going to hit something because they don't realize they are. Whereas the people who know they're about to hit something tense up, and that's what puts your body in a vulnerable position. So that tracks, I guess, is what we're saying. Just awful. Just hearing the descriptions of people talking about it, seeing several children ejected from the vehicle, multiple fatalities. Again, 8 people died. The people in the head-on collision, 3 seniors in their 70s and late 60s. 2 brothers, the Bastardi brothers, and a friend, Daniel Longo. So,
All instantly dead from,
right.
which makes sense. I heard I had to take traffic school once, and this cop was talking about collisions and how they work.
Yeah, this is the same cop that you famously brought up on the last Doc World. Is that right?
Yeah, I learned a lot from these traffic schools. But he was saying, he's like, if you have a head-on collision, he's like, so if you're driving 75 miles an hour and then you hit something, that thing's a brick wall, you're going 75 miles an hour. It's a tremendous amount of force. If you have a head-on collision with 2 moving objects, you take both of those forces and you multiply them, or add them together, I suppose. So you have 2 75-mile-an-hour driving cars, so that's 150 miles an hour. So it's 150 miles an hour into a complete concrete brick wall.
Yeah, it's horrific.
Yeah, horrifying. No one should be able to survive that.
Except little Brian. Brian survived. So this ostensibly is where we get into the fun part, quotes around fun. You know, as we were watching this, I kind of thought to myself, well, I guess this isn't really a true crime documentary. It's just sort of, it fits in the same ballpark, I guess, maybe because it's Liz Garbus, maybe because that's typically what she does. But it does have sort of a mystery crime feel to it, because you're like, was this an intentional thing? Was this not? Were there drugs involved? Has she been lying? You know, what's going on? So I think it fits. But yeah, this is where we get to kind of unpack what the hell happened and why, and what maybe the best theories are for it. So one thing I hinted at earlier was, is it possible that Diane has been a steady user of drugs and alcohol for some time and is pretty tolerant of it? Maybe. But if she is, she was really good at hiding it from everyone. Now, what we learned, because we trust Dr. Werner Spitz and his analysis of the autopsy and the toxicology reports, that there was definitely THC and alcohol in Diane, and that the levels they told us, basically 20%, and high levels of THC is all they say. We take that at face value. We believe that's true. We're not going to get into was the toxicology wrong, like some of her family members would like to believe. So we're going to just squash that right away. We believe that stuff was in Diane. The question for me now, the interesting part, is how and when did it get in there, and why? Right?
Right. So reluctantly, the husband eventually admits that, because he said no alcohol. We have no alcohol. We never drink. And then it comes out there's the bottle of Absolute vodka in the car. And he goes, oh, well, when we're out there at our camping lake house, we have a bottle around, have some cocktails. Yeah, okay. And they're like, okay, well, how did it get into the van? He's like, I don't know. She packed the van, so I don't know.
Right. So Diane had booze in the van. She had access to booze. So let's start, I guess, with the how and when. So if we believe the proprietor of the campsite, Diane was totally sober and seemed like the way she always was. Now, if Diane is a seasoned drinker, that could be the way she always was, right? And that's who she is. So that's something to consider. That's possible. But let's say that it's not. Let's say it's true that Diane only parties every once in a while, and that's what it is. Just some casual partying once a month, twice a month, some weed to go to sleep. But it sounds like she did have access to weed, because there would be nights when she needed some and she'd take some, but it wasn't very frequent. But she did have some.
Would have liked a lot more detail on that, by the way. Was she prescribed? How did she obtain this? Did she smoke it? Did she eat it like an edible?
Right. Was there weed in the car? Presumably not. Presumably all that stuff you just asked, there's just an I don't know or a no,
Right.
because they found the bottle of vodka, but that was it.
I've also heard, and you can probably cut this out, but marijuana stays in your body for up to like 30 days. It's like people fail drug tests for marijuana a lot, even though they're not high at the time or even weeks prior.
Yeah, I think that's more like traces of it. Like it shows that you've done it. But as far as I think what they're talking about with this saying there was a high level of THC indicates that it had been used recently.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think
Let's
like
just
it's still active in her blood.
Yeah, we don't know enough to really speculate on it, so
Right.
we just have to take it at face value.
And we know it wasn't found, or there's no report like, oh yeah, she had an eighth of weed in the car too, or something. There was none of that. So our next little piece of evidence is, she seems fine at the McDonald's. Then she gets to the gas station where, presumably, as far as what we're told, she was looking for some pain medication. This could be from an abscessed tooth. She could be having something going on with her vision, maybe a migraine, something like that, because we later hear that she's having trouble seeing. Or it could be, a standard headache. The kids are screaming. She's driving home. She's just, has a headache, or she's not feeling well.
And I think we already pointed this out before, but it's a kind of a weird move to stop at a gas station, not pump gas, not buy anything, but just walk in, ask about this thing that they don't have, and just move on. And then decides, well, I'm not going to try another place. I'm just going to go.
Yeah. And then are you telling yourself, I guess it's not so bad. I'll be able to make it home.
Or do you tell yourself, well, okay, I don't have the pain med, but why don't I just pour a little shot in this Coke from McDonald's, and I'll just have a little cocktail.
Right. So, and people are like, I don't know when she would have taken it and kept it from the kids. I think that would be pretty easy to, like, the kids not see it, or not really know what it is, really.
Right.
Or she's just like, we stopped at McDonald's. She's got the vodka bottle in the trunk. She goes back there and makes a little cocktail or whatever.
But at some point, she had to get weed in her system, right?
And
it could have been an edible, I suppose.
Could have been an edible. So here's one theory that I had. Did she know that she had some edibles? Like, even if she was someone who had pretty good experience with drugs and alcohol, and she had been hiding this from people, by all accounts and from what we know about her, she still probably wouldn't jeopardize her kids just to get some, drugs into her. She'd probably wait for getting home or something, unless there was some thing making her do it, like an abscessed tooth, like serious pain or something. Did she say, damn it, I can't find any Advil, or conveniently they didn't have it at that one place? Oh, guess my quest's over. I'm going to have to turn to my other medicine. And know that she had some edibles, like a gummy or something, and ate that. And we know with edibles, it takes a while to kick in. She's going, this isn't working. I need something else. I'm going to try booze now. And then it all hits her at once that edible kicks in. And now she's been drinking, and she's just like, whoa, shit. Because, sometimes when that edible kicks in and you know you've overdone it, and then you're like, whoa, fuck. Like, it's really powerful.
Yeah, edibles are terrifying because you're almost constantly riding a high upwards. Whereas you smoke, you peak the high immediately. So you're on this roller coaster, it's like click, 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 and you can feel yourself going up and you go, oh no.
Right. How high will it go?
Yeah, I don't want this to keep going.
Yeah.
But 0.19. Extreme. So she's having drinks. They said 10 drinks.
10 shots. Now you could dump 10 shots into a half of like a large McDonald's cup, right? And that's not going to fill your cup by any means. Could you oversell it? Like I'll just pour this much in, and now you've got 10 shots in there. Add your Sprite or whatever. Possibly, and then she's just slamming it as she drives.
Yeah, just sipping it, thinking, oh, this is fine. Takes the edible, forgets how much she's drinking.
Yeah, because it's a nice tasting cocktail. She's got soda in there or something, and doesn't realize, oh shit, I just drank the whole thing. And that was
also,
like 10 shots.
Doesn't feel well, so she's like, maybe this is making me feel a little bit better with each sip. So I'm just slamming it, trying to get to a sort of equilibrium.
Yeah,
that feels good.
But then there must have been some point when she realizes that she's too fucked up. And that's what the phone calls are about, like the pulling over and being like, oh, I need help. I got to get a hold of someone. And the kid's saying there's something wrong with her. She can't see. And the can't see thing, like she's blind to this, tracks with what the witnesses saw where they're like, she doesn't seem to see that we're there. Like she's just determined and fixated on her path. Or are the kids inferring that she can't see? Like, and going, she can't see clearly because she's not moving. She's going the wrong way and she's not moving out of the way of these cars. Dad, there's something wrong with her. She can't see. Like, was that something they inferred, or did Diane say that she couldn't see? I think, actually, I have the answer. I think Brian did say, yeah, Brian's memory was that Diane said that her head hurt and she was having trouble seeing.
Right, and Brian is the surviving child.
Right, and he's the youngest, so, he's not going to make his own inferences. I don't think that must have been something she said to him. But then, so if she's having trouble, and then I can see leaving the phone if you're in this weird fugue state and you're fucked up and really drunk now, and the edible is kicked in and you're just zonked. I could see leaving the phone. That makes sense, like you forgot it. But why get back on the freeway at all if you know you're in trouble, having trouble driving, whether you're going the right way or the wrong way? You stopped for a reason. Why get back on? So that opens up what you were talking about earlier, is the potential suicide, like the determined to get on the wrong side and take everyone down with you. Could that be something she had planned all along and then was chickening out and needed liquid courage to get through it? Like, I can't do this. I can't do it. But maybe if I start slamming vodka, then I will be able to kill myself and all my kids. Did you consider that?
I hadn't considered that, no.
The liquid courage part you had?
No,
but you had considered the suicide.
I considered the suicide only because later in the doc, something that her husband says, or it's said about him, and he says, I never wanted to have kids. And now I'm stuck with this surviving kid, Brian. So he says, look what she's left me with. I never wanted kids in the first place. Now my life is just devoted to raising this child, which, obviously terrible, but it also seems like the kind of thing he might say a bunch when you got 5 kids at this cabin. So now you're dealing with your kids and all these others screaming, hollering, doing stuff, needy. They need food. They need, attention. And he's laying into his wife before they get on the road that Sunday. He's like, I don't want to see these kids. You wanted them. They're your responsibility. I wish I never had them.
And that's why he drove separately without a single kid in his car.
Right. And then feels this unbelievable guilt now, to the point where he's in complete denial that she may have had a drink. That he's going on Larry King talking about it because maybe this reflects so poorly on him, because he knows deep down that maybe he pushed her too far.
That's interesting. But does Diane seem like such a frail personality that him saying that to her would be like, well, fine, then I'll kill all of us, even your nieces that have nothing to do with our family, like they don't live with us normally.
Doesn't seem like it. I mean, there's just not really enough evidence for that take. I'm
Yeah.
just sort of laying it out there
Sure.
as a possibility because the thing is so weird, but it doesn't seem likely, no.
But to back it up, there was an interesting moment when we're talking to some of her teenage friends, Diane's teenage friends, and they were really close throughout grade school and high school, and I believe even some of college, but then hadn't spoken in 10 years. At the time of Diane's death, it had been 10 years since this group of friends had been together. Diane invited one of them to her wedding, but she declined to go. The others weren't even invited. And Liz Garbus is interviewing them and sort of asks, like, why, well, what was the cause of the 10 years not talking and she didn't invite you to her wedding, only one of you? And they were like, the first answer she gets to that is, well, there was no falling out or anything like that. We didn't have any bad blood or any fights or anything. But one of the friends says, it was just Danny. Danny was a private person. They just did their own thing. There was no rhyme or reason for why we stopped talking. But the first thing that she says is Danny. That's the first word. Like, why did you guys stop talking? Why are the friends not a friend group anymore? Well, Danny. So that's interesting, right? Like, when this marriage happened, when she got with Danny, her life changed. And now friends aren't friends anymore. Is she a prisoner? Like, is she under this spell of Danny? Is her life much more miserable than people know at home? And this has been building. And then, like you said, there was a falling out. It's possible. Like, it has to be considered.
Yeah, another thing is that she met Danny at one of the friend group's wedding. So one of the women that she was friends with, this close-knit group, met her future husband at their wedding. So, it actually does coincide exactly, like the end of their friendship coincides exactly with the two of them getting together.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess, gun to my head, I have to pick something. I don't think it's suicide. I think it's an accident. I think she just got on the wrong way. I don't know why she got back on the road. It's fascinating, man. It's fascinating to think about, to see that woman on the gas station footage and be like, 2 hours after this, she's going to have a head-on collision on the freeway because she got on the wrong way and is loaded with toxins. It's hard to reconcile that when you look at that video.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of, quote unquote, as you said, fun for us to talk about like the theories and possibilities and foul play or whatnot, but like the simplest answer or simplest solution is probably the most true, right? She was in a lot of pain from a migraine or this tooth issue she had been dealing with. Tries to get meds, can't, starts drinking, maybe takes some pot, and just it gets away from her. She's doing too much of it, and then is just making mistakes on the road. To me, it's just like, I guess it's just so hard for me to think for 1.7 miles, you're driving the wrong direction with 5 kids in the car. No one's screaming at her. Pull over, you're going the wrong way.
Well, I think they probably were screaming at her. Well, you're scaring us, Diane. What are you doing? I think that was probably happening, but maybe it was blocked out just as easily as she blocked out the cars in front of her coming at her, the way people said she wasn't even registering, just fixated on what she was doing. So maybe it plays in the same way.
It's like, when does that happen? I guess you can be in a blackout and be totally unaware of what's happening around you, but you still have some sort of functionality, no?
Yeah, you're still in the moment.
Unless you have something deep subconscious in you that's telling you like to kill yourself. Take them all.
Yeah, because even if you couldn't see and you're like, oh my God, I'm going blind, something's happened, like some weird thing, just start like, I can't see. The first thing you would do would be like, well, let's stop driving.
Right.
You wouldn't be like, all right, let's just a couple more miles. I think I can get it. That certainly wouldn't be it. It's just so like, I think you're right. It's just, she overdid it. And Yeah, I don't know. It's so weird. Like the overdid it part would totally track for everything up until getting on the wrong way.
Yeah. If she had been going the right way and hit somebody or swerved off the road or had in the middle of driving the correct way cross the median onto the other side or something, that would almost
Yeah.
make more sense.
Totally.
But she entered the freeway the wrong way, drove 1.7 miles. Cars are swerving out of the way.
Yeah, honking,
And she's not,
screaming.
her car from the eyewitnesses isn't swerving. She's locked in the lane. She's driving correctly, just
Yeah.
the wrong direction.
Another thing, like you said, is it possible that Diane's tooth was bothering her all weekend at the cabin? And she had been ripping vodka and weed to kind of manage it, and her husband knew that, and everyone kind of knew it. They're like, Diane's got this toothache, she's doing it, and so, like you said, but they don't want to admit that, that's possible. And then she just kept doing it and didn't realize how much she had, and they're like, I shouldn't be driving when I do this, and maybe her husband's mad at her. They said, or Jay Schuler was like, yeah, he resents her. He's mad at her now. Maybe part of that also is she said she wouldn't fucking do it on the drive home. She was doing it all weekend, but she said this part she would be safe, and she fucking didn't. And now look what happened. I mean, it's just awful though. The cost of it,
Yeah. Yeah. The kids, I mean, yeah, horrifying. But is there also, just to keep pontificating on all this.
Yeah.
So let's say maybe the little family camping weekend wasn't so much fun, right? What's his name? What's his fucking name?
Daniel.
Danny. Sitting there going, I wish I never had kids. Wish I wasn't here. I wish I was on my boat by myself with you and the dog. And he's, just a miserable guy. Doesn't want her doing anything else. And then she gets enough drinks in her on the way back, and she says, fine, you're better off without me and the kids, huh? You want your own life? Here we go. It's yours.
Yeah, I mean, it's dark.
Dark, dark world.
It is a dark, 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 dark world. And, this is interesting. It does say from the toxicology report, the THC level determined that she had used marijuana within an hour before death.
You were saying the other night how if you drink too much and then smoke a little weed, it's like you are just...
Yeah, it really can grab you. And that's why the edible thing is so intense too, because if you took the edible, it's very common to go, this isn't working. I need more. And then you take another one. You're like, this still isn't working. All right, fuck it. Absolute vodka always works. I'm going to hit that. And then the edibles kick in, and you've taken too much of them on their own now because you doubled up. It could just be a wave of psychosis that washes over you like a hallucinogenic state.
Yeah, and, another part of her character that they do say is that she's very, go-getter, in control, A-type. She's in control. And then, so, maybe she's like, I got this, even though she's can't see straight.
Totally. Yeah. New York State Police investigator Joseph Becerra said a trooper's accident report doesn't include a wrong way box to check, suggesting that these accidents are too rare to warrant a designation. Probably half a dozen wrong way head-on crashes in his 34 years on the job. All of them involved alcohol. So maybe it is a little more common than we seem to think. I mean, they're still really rare, but of all the wrong way crashes this guy's investigated over 34 years, each of them has involved alcohol.
Yeah, checks out.
I've been in the car with people driving drunk, and I've driven drunk myself ages ago. Not proud of it, but that's what I was referencing when I said that, it still seems like you have enough faculties to know big things like that, like I'm driving the wrong way. But that's me in my experience. I've also been in the car with another person driving the car drunk, and remember noting like, oh my God, he's driving crazily right now. Like I wouldn't do that. Like hitting like lampposts and shit. Like, and me actually thinking like, whoa, people really do lose control. Like, that kind of a thing, going, I guess maybe when I do this, I'm not as bad as, this person is now. So is there a limit? Is there a point you can hit? If Diane had, the timing is interesting too, because, if you have 10 shots over the course of 3 hours, it's very different than 10 shots over the course of 1 hour, right? So did she just do so much that this seemed reasonable to her and it was just totally not?
I mean, to give her a little bit of credit, I've had times where I've kind of haven't been paying attention and I've started to turn into the wrong way. Sometimes there's entrance, exit are like right next to each other.
Right.
It can be a little bit confusing. I can get that, but it's to continue going. That's the strange part.
Totally. Yeah, this guy says, just about every case we've experienced that results with a head-on collision in 36 years has involved some type of impairment with drugs or alcohol. You can have all the signage you want, but if somebody is that drunk, it's not going to make a difference. But yeah, man, just really sad. Just a awful story.
Yeah, tough one to bring me on for.
Totally. You had your choice. We could have done Gladiator Days, Anatomy of a Prison Murder.
Yeesh, yeah. I guess I went with, head-on collision, 8 children dead.
Yeah. In fairness, I only gave Devin titles and directors, I think. So you went with Garbus. Something Wrong with Aunt Diane sounded better than Anatomy of a Prison Murder. Too grisly.
Yeah, I think that the doc overall is interesting. It's probably worth a watch. If anything, it's just a fascinating look at how people handle grief.
Yeah. It's just, like we said, fun to do these kind of, what did she do? What do you think she did? It's just a conversation piece. It's like a nice conversation starter. And I'm sure, audience, you listening to this right now, you guys have theories, you have ideas, you've thought about this before. So definitely hit us up with that. Either emails. If you're watching this on YouTube, smash that like button and subscribe, but then also comment and tell us what you think happened with Aunt Diane. And if you're just listening on your favorite podcatcher, well, send us an email, darkworldpod@gmail.com, or if you're listening on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review and mention something about what you think about Aunt Diane. But yeah, it's one of those fun things to unpack, and just sometimes the mystery ones are the ones that, where we don't have a definitive answer, like a whodunit kind of thing, because that's what gets audience involvement. That's why we like these things, like Paradise Lost. Did the West Memphis 3 do it? Was it the stepfather? Who did these things? Like the one who killed John Bonet? Was it the parents? Was it the brother? All these different things that we'll never have the answer to. Those are the most exciting because we really want to know. Like, this is on my deathbed. This is one of the ones where, like, what was up with Aunt Diane?
you get to ask like 3 questions to God or whatever power at the end of your life.
John Bonet, Aunt Diane, and
not Kennedy, not.
Yeah, I'd have to make a list and prioritize.
Right.
But that's it. That's what drives us for this kind of thing, I think. And I mean, it just sucks for the kids and that family. Diane's brother and his wife lost all 3 of their kids that day.
They notably are not featured at all in the doc. They declined to be interviewed or be involved in any way.
Yeah.
Understandable.
The families of the other victims, they were involved. It was just Diane's brother and sister-in-law that lost 3 kids that didn't want to do it. Yeah, it's tough.
Tough one.
It's just a rough one. But yeah, I mean, what do you want to, you give it a letter grade? Or like stars?
I'm grading on basically my enjoyment as a viewer.
Yeah.
I'll give it a B-.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, I put it about the B range. So, yeah, we can round it between the two.
Yeah,
so
which I think is a good grade.
That means go watch it if you have access to it. It's on HBO Max. There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane. Or maybe there's some of it on YouTube, like interesting parts of it are on YouTube or something. But yeah, again, please let us know what you thought. And you got anything you want to plug, Devo?
Not really. You can follow me on Instagram, which some of the listeners have.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, appreciate that. It's @DevCrit, DevCritt. Or just my Twitter, I guess, at Devin Crittenden, DEVIN, CRITTENDEN.
Yeah, spelling out our last name is the funny one.
Always a tough one.
Spell your last name for me, like when it's over the phone. So CRI, and then when you get into the ENDEN part, like
Yeah, they're like, wait,
E
did
as
you?
in echo. Wait, D as in dog. No, I thought you said EN. Yeah, it's first EN, then it's DEN. It's so annoying.
Well, is it DEN or just EN?
Right.
Well, it's both. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But yeah, Crittenden curse. There are many of them. I think that's it. If there's anything else I need to add later on as like an outro or something, I'll throw that in there. Listeners, you know what to do. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. So work it.
Is that the AA slogan?
Yeah, I don't know what that was. But hey, we're promoting awareness. Don't drink and drive.
Yes. Jeez.
Don't do edibles and think that they're not working. Really wait to see if it kicks in.
Yeah, honestly, yeah. Probably just stay away from edibles. Everybody who doesn't like weed always starts the story with, so I took an edible.
Right.
And I go, oh, I already know how this ends. So,
It's so
I
true.
don't need to hear the rest of the story.
Very, very true. Well, great. Thanks for doing this, bro.
Yeah, happy to do it. Love coming on the pod. Yeah, enjoy talking about death with my brother. Yeah, this probably wasn't gruesome enough for you. You need like a little more. You really like to just put some mustard on it when you're describing some things.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The toolbox killers. They used pliers, twisted their nipples. She pleaded with them for her life.
My voice has changed a little since those early days. I think I was trying to be too spooky and scary in like those initial episodes, which are no longer on our main feed. If you want access to those early days to hear what Devin's making fun of me for, please go to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/darkdarkworld. There you can get all those old episodes to see where my voice has gone over the last couple of years. I think I've rolled into a better performance now, but yeah, this wasn't that grisly, man. Those pictures of Aunt Diane, they weren't fucked up enough.
You're just so disappointed.
I was hoping you'd choose Gladiator Days, Anatomy of a Prison Murder. Just shivs.
Jesus.
Just kidding. No, I really do like this documentary. So shout out Liz Garbus, one of my favorite true crime directors. Another slam dunk for her. And thanks again, bro. High five.
Hey, high five.
Thank you, listeners. Thanks for listening to us. And really, please do send us your theories about this. If this is one of your like cases, we all have our pet cases and weird things that we like to have theories on. So I am curious to hear. Love you, Devin. Thanks for coming on.
Love you too, Jord. It was a pleasure.
See you soon, listeners, or I'll talk at you soon. Farewell. Bye-bye.